wilderness is beginning to thaw. Temperatures are sitting well above zero. Most of the snow is already melted. I think it's safe to say that spring is definitely here. Following spring, of course, is summer, the season for camping. Everybody's going to be getting their packs loaded up, heading off to enjoy some time in the outdoors. And ahead of this upcoming camping season, I thought I would go over a few different aspects of tarp camping, share some tips and tricks with you guys. To begin today, I will share with you probably the simplest ridgeline you can make, utilizing one basic knot, the slipped overhand knot. Before I show you how to tie the knot, I'm going to walk you through a few simple knot tying terms so that you can understand what I'm saying. First one is a bite. That is when the line is doubled up in half, like this. The line does not actually cross, it just gets doubled up in half. Next up is the crossing turn. This is where we do cross the line over itself and form a loop, and that is a crossing turn. You'll also hear me using terms like working end and standing end of the rope. What this means is when I'm making a knot, the end of the rope that I'm utilizing to make that knot is the working end, and the rest of the line is called the standing end or standing part of that line. To begin the slipped overhand knot that we will be utilizing for our ridgeline, I'll first demonstrate a simple overhand knot. This is where we make a crossing turn. With our working end, we're going to come through this loop on the opposite side from which it crossed. Right now our working end is crossing on top of the standing end of this loop, which means we're going to take it and come through the bottom side. When we do that, we end up with this pretzel shape. When we pull it tight, it becomes an overhand knot. Now we can very simply turn that into a slipped overhand knot by once again making our crossing turn. And rather than feeding our working end through the loop, we can put a bite into the working end and feed that bite through the loop. Then when we pull that tight, we end up with a slipped overhand knot, which means that when we pull on the tail end, the knot will break apart. Here's a little bit of a close-up view of that slipped overhand knot, how it's formed. Once again, when we pull that tight, it becomes a slipped overhand knot, pull on the tail end, and it breaks apart. To utilize our slipped overhand knot to lock onto our first tree, we're going to take one end of our line and go all the way around the tree, just like that. And the working end of our rope, after we've gone around the tree, we're going to begin the makings of our slipped overhand knot by making our crossing turn. Now, for this crossing turn, the working end is crossing on top. That means we're going to place the loop on top of our ridgeline side. If we had made that cross to the bottom, we would have to place this loop on the bottom side. But to keep it simple, we'll work from the top. Working end is crossing on top, which means our loop goes over top of our ridgeline. Now with our tail end, we're going to come around to the bottom side, form our bite, pass the bite through our loop, and then we pull that tight. We've now formed a slipped overhand knot going around the line, which forms a loop around our tree. And this knot will slide, which means that we can cinch it up against the tree, and that is how we lock on to our first tree. Now, a few things I should mention here. When we make our slipped overhand knot and go around the line, I don't work this knot super tight. The tighter you make it, the more difficult it is to get undone. So I keep this knot relatively loose, and that way, when it comes time to take it down, when I pull on my tail end, the rope doesn't bunch up and bind on itself, making it really difficult to pull. And even though that knot isn't super tight, it can still support my whole weight pulling against that tree. But again, when it comes time to break that knot, it comes apart very easily. So here's how the knot looks when it's not tightened down. And we tighten it down. Looks like this. Cinch it up against the tree, locked onto the first tree, ready to go to our next one. Alright, at our second tree, we've taken the line, ran it from our first tree over here to our second tree. We have proceeded to go all the way around once. Our working end is over on this side. What I do is take my working end and I place it on top of my ridge line. And what I do is come back over to this side. This is where I'll begin to tension the ridge line, simply just by pulling on it. Pull it as tight as I can. I'm going to keep tension on it. we're going to once again be crossing this line on top. We cross it over top, then we come underneath so that we've gone around our ridge line. Now we're going to pull back towards ourselves, which is going to give us the majority of this tension. So we're going to pull, just going to make our ridge line nice and tight. Then we simply run the line back around the tree. So now that we've got our ridge line nice and tight, we've gone back around the tree, and our working end is running parallel with our ridge line. All we need to do is secure this off with a slipped overhand knot. To do that, I'm going to form a crossing turn in my working end once again, and the working end is crossing on top, which means we're going to place this loop on top of our ridge line. Now what I like to do is slide this loop all the way down to where it butts up with where we went around our ridge line to create our tension. Slide that back, and I just press on it with my thumb. You don't have to put much pressure on it. It's going to friction hold, which then gives me a free hand to reach through here and grab my working end, which is the same as creating a bite and passing it through the loop. Either way, we're taking a bite through that loop, pull that tight, and that gives us our slipped overhand knot, securing everything. Ridge lines are as complicated as you make them. I know lots of people like to get pretty fancy with their knots and different systems, utilizing wood toggles and stuff. For me, one length of rope is as fancy as I want to get. 2 simple knots, quick and easy to set up and take down. Nice thing about it too is I don't have to have a dedicated ridgeline system in my kit. Any length of cord that's long enough to go between 2 trees will suffice. So now that we've gone through the process of setting this up, I thought I would go through real quick, show you how fast it is to take down and how quick and easy it is to set up. Simply pull on the 2 tail ends of the slipped overhand knots. The whole thing comes loose. Takes seconds to take down. It's pretty quick to set up too. So there you have it. Simple, quick and easy to tie, and works great. Next up will be securing a tarp to this. I'm going to show you a real quick way to do that as well. And until then, God bless and happy trails.